Oh, good morning, everybody. Hold on. Let me take it off the lesson page and go to the start window. Hello, everybody. We're live now. You're asking when class starts. It's 7:30 a.m. my time, so that's 7:30 Pacific Standard Time. Let me write that in the chat. I don't know what time it is where you are. It's a bunch of different times. 7:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, or good evening. As usual, I see a lot of familiar faces and a lot of new faces. Welcome for those of you just joining us. I do very well, thank you. How are you doing, Chippy? Love that name, Chippy Lovegood. Well, hello, Chilly. Speaking of chilly, Chilly, it is very cold here this morning. It is fall, and in fall, of course, the temperature decreases and it has started to rain. We had two very, very nice days this weekend, but on this Monday, very, very cold this morning. So I hope it's a little warmer where you're at, but the change of the seasons has begun. I think I've complained about the cold before. And when I say cold, I mean chilly, Chilly. It's chilly, not freezing, not terribly cold, but you know what? A little cold, a little cold. I'm happy to have this nice warm pink background in the background. That color will warm me up, I'm sure. And we will be here about an hour. These lessons take about an hour. A good greeting to you, Al Walid. Welcome everybody. Today we're going to talk about modals, and I saw that you indeed have the correct modals. Things like shall, should, will, would. We'll talk about all the modals, and then we'll see some examples of modals of probability. Before we begin, of course, I'm going to share the link with you. For those of you on computer, if you follow this link, you'll be able to see the notes. And with the notes, since I talked about the notes, let's go ahead and put it up on the background there. There are the notes. Can you see those? Should I make it a little bigger if I can? Okay. Oftentimes that helps to make it bigger. Okay. No hurricane here. Not extreme weather. Chavez, not extreme weather here. Only a little, mildly cold. Little bit cold. We do have a hurricane down south, of course, near Florida and the Gulf of Mexico, so states like Alabama and Georgia. There is some danger of hurricane there. It feels like yearly now. So on the Atlantic, there is always some concern for hurricanes. But not here, not on the Pacific. Okay, so that link I shared with you, and I'll go through the same spiel I do every time. If you have more questions, you can contact Zach. We have a new Smrt Live page. Let me go ahead and bring that up in the background. We do have a new Smrt Live page. We have a monthly prescription now. With a monthly prescription, you do have access to the curriculum, to the Smrt curriculum that we use when we teach. We'll also mark assignments when you complete assignments. There are quizzes and there are exams, and there's a certificate at the end. So if you are interested in the Smrt Live classes, it's a subscription service, and it's about $64 a month. And I can't do the exchange rate for all of your money, your currencies in the country you live. But check this out. Check out this page, the Smrt Live page. There are several classes to choose from. And you will get homework and quizzes and assignments, etc. Yes, good, Zayed. Yes, there's also a hurricane concern in North Carolina as well. East Coast, also East Coast. So I hope you're all safe where you're at for the time being. And I think we should get started. I'll go down. My name, as always, is Neal Hallgarth. You can friend me on Facebook. Today we're going to talk about probability. I only have one vocabulary up here so far, only one vocabulary, and the vocabulary word is probability. So what is the meaning of probability? What does that mean to you? Have you come across that word before? Probability. I'm wondering if you've heard of any good synonyms for probability. Now remember, it's different than, I guess I'm adding another one now, possibility. Probability and possibility. Yeah, okay, so maybe they are kind of synonyms, they're close. If you could say a difference between them, what would you say the difference is? What is the difference? They are very, very close, and sometimes they can be used to have a very similar meaning, but probability and possibility. So I guess also we could look at the adjective forms, which would be probable and possible. And welcome, of course, from welcome to, I should say. Welcome from America from me, but I will send a welcome to Iraq and Pakistan and Argentina and Chile, to Spain, Mexico, Vietnam. Goodness, you guys represent the world well. Yeah, I like that. Jorge, I like that a lot, actually. That probability is used with facts. We can say very likely to happen. There is a high chance that it will happen. Possibility is something that can happen in the future. For me, probability is always stronger. Probable. Again, very likely to happen. Possible. Oh, let's bring that back. Possible. Can happen. Possibility, there are many things that are possible in the future. That doesn't mean they will actually happen. Something that's very probable to happen has a very, very good chance of happening. It's something that's a little easier to predict. And welcome to Turkey and Bangkok. Welcome, everybody. So let's just think of probability as being stronger than possibility. And then let's look at the 10 modals. For some of you, this will be review. For some of you, maybe some of these modals are new. So the 10 modals are can, could, may, might, shall, should, will, would, must, and ought to. Again, one more time going through those again. 10 modals: can, could, may, might, shall, should, will, would, must, and ought to. And one way that's a little easier to remember these is, notice the first two begin with C. So we got two C modals, can and could. Two M modals, may and might. Two SH modals, shall and should. Two W modals, will and would. And we have a couple odd ones, must, which is another M one, and ought to. Yes, could can be used as a past form of can. Can and could. Kind of like will and would. So we have some of them that take on kind of a past tense form, or can take on a past tense form, have the ability to do that. So let's look at the rules. Let's look at, that's Santos. I like those examples. I'm going to put those examples up. And let me blow these up. Let me make these a little bit bigger. Birds can fly. Probability, yeah. If it's a bird, sometime in the future, it's safe to say it will fly. That's very much a probability. I can swim, it's a possibility. But it's not essential. It's not essential for humans to swim. Birds can fly, I think, might be even stronger. I think we could call that one certainty. Certainty is 100%, 100% it will happen. So we have certainty. I would say birds can fly is even stronger than probability. I would say that's certainty. So let's look at probability. What's the difference? Probably with probability, since it's very cold here, those birds could, I'll use could fly south for the winter. If I were to look at some birds that were in a tree, and it's fall, it's autumn, it's very late, a lot of the birds have already started migrating south for the winter. If I saw some birds in the tree, but I'm not sure, I'm not a bird expert, I'm not a bird watcher, and I saw some birds in a tree, and I'm not sure if they are the type of birds that would migrate or not, but I would make a guess. I could say those birds could fly south for the winter. It's probable they would. Maybe something like might. Those birds might fly south for the winter. There, I feel a little bit better with that one. Those birds might fly south for the winter. So let's look at some rules. And of course, I shared these in the notes, but I got these rules from Smrt. So if you do have access to the Smrt curriculum, I am on 125, English 125, 4.1, grammar 4.1, probability. And there's the 10 modals again. Again, the 10 modals, just for repetition's sake: can, could, may, might, shall, should, will, would, must, ought to. Is it important to memorize these? Not so important. However, there's 10 of them, so I believe you can memorize them. I believe it's a short list to memorize. So let's look at some of the rules. Okay, the nice thing about modals is they do not change like other verb forms, meaning you don't have to really change the tense. So go become goes. Like if you look at the subject, I go, he goes, she goes, it goes. Past tense, I went, he went, she went, it went. It is gone, it has gone, I have gone. We don't have to worry about that with modals. Look, looks, and then the past forms looked, looked, verb 2 and verb 3. We don't have to worry about those in modals. So let's think of an example for this one. Okay, they do not change forms. I'm going to use might again, one of my favorite modals, might. I might eat ice cream after dinner. So notice our main verb, eat. And then we have this modal, might. Might does not change. It will always be the words might. And I know we have a stronger form, such as must. We have a polite form, may. However, if I use this modal, and it's the modal I mean to use, and I'm using it correctly, no change. It's just might. There's no mighted. There's no mights. Does not change. And my verb afterwards is just going to be verb 1. It's going to be an unchanged verb. This also does not get S or ED, or more appropriately, the past form ate. It will always stay eat. You just need verb 1 for your main verb. So modals actually make grammar a little easier. If you use the modal correctly, your grammar is going to be easier. I always think modals make everything easier because your modal will stay the same and your verb will stay the same. Okay. Oh, that's a grim one, Chavez. We shall die. I don't know. That sounds like maybe from a movie where somebody is about to run into battle. We shall die. I guess if you're in a horrible situation, you can say we shall die. Hopefully, that's just a possibility. I think that sounds kind of like, I'm going to just call it a possibility. It sounds like a movie quote. Not I shall die, it's we. It's always funner to have somebody along with you. You should not eat ice cream at night. That's good advice. That's good. That's a good use of advice modal. We're not talking about advice modals today, but that Chavez, that's a great use. You should not eat ice cream at night. I'm going to actually put that as another example because it's a good, I think we have a negative form. Maybe that's a good use of the negative form. So I'm going to use your example sentence. And we're not quite there yet, but we'll get there. Just a couple more rules down. I need to make this a little bigger. There we go. Oh, I made it really big. Okay. You should not eat ice cream at night. Of course you shouldn't eat ice cream at night. So we have the modal should, and then notice afterwards we have not to show the negative form. Of course, if you want to, you could always use shouldn't. So should not, or the contracted form, shouldn't. But notice, look at that verb 1, unchanged verb. So modals can actually make things a little easier. Remember that, grammar-wise. You don't have to be so worried about that verb. Okay, let's look at the next rule. So that's rule number 1. Rule number 2. There is no do, does in the question forms. So if you're asking somebody a question, you want somebody to help you, can you give me a hand? Not do you give me a hand? Can you give me a hand? So, and there is actually some forms. Maybe I'll show you an exception. Here's an exception to that rule I just stated. So usually no do or does in the question form, but you might see something like this. Does he ever give you a hand? And I'm just giving this as an exception to clear up confusion. Notice no modal though. I just used does. So you can use do or does in a question like this. However, if you do, no modal, okay? Does he ever give you a hand? Meaning, does he ever help you? If you do use that do or does in a question like this, no modal. So you have a choice. You can use the regular do does, like you have in a question form, or a modal, but not both. Not both. Okay, we have, oh, thanks. I could be a teacher, huh? Well, thank you, Chavez. That makes me feel very, very good. I could be a teacher. Yeah, you're right. I could be a teacher. That would be, would that be possibility or probability? When I was in school, I could play football. Good use of the ability form. Maybe I should start putting some examples down here. So I always like the examples you guys come up with. Yeah, when I was in school, I could play football. So past ability. And then you're asking a question after that. Santos, you're asking a question. Both these are good, but they have different meanings. Remember, and we're not quite there yet, we'll look at meanings very soon. Depending on the modal you use, the meaning will change a little bit. When I was in school, I could play football. I would say this is ability. I would play football when I was in school, and I would say that's more habit, past habit. So the meaning changes depending on modals, and maybe that's the tough part of modals, is the change in meaning. And I see you're already familiar with using, some of you are already familiar with using modals. Let me get through these rules real quick. So, you don't have to change form, don't have to change grammar form. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2, no do or does. You can have a modal. If you choose to use do or does for like a yes/no question, do not use a modal. There is no don't or doesn't in the negative forms. Just use the modal with the negative not. Okay, they always followed, I mentioned this before, they are always followed by a base form verb. Verb number 1, an unchanged verb, a verb that doesn't show tense or aspect. Ought to is the only exception because we have this to. So for example, we would help if we had time. She mustn't do that. We ought to get going. So here we have unchanged verb. Verb number 1, base form verb. Base form verb. With ought to, because that to is already always there, we'll have what looks like an infinitive phrase, to get. But get, it's just get. It's not gotten or got. Oh, okay. Why does can have the past form could? Well, will, remember this, will has that kind of past form would. When we use them as modals, they can take on different meanings. And ultimately in this lesson, I will get to some of the meanings of these. We will focus a little bit. Just know these modals for now. And because you do have so many questions about this, maybe Wednesday as well, when I'm back on Wednesday, we will continue to talk about modals because I see there are a lot of good questions. So I think what you're asking now are questions of meaning. What do these mean? And we're going to get to that. So could, let's think of these, and they're more than just these meanings. Let's think of could. But remember, like if I ask, could you give me a hand? Can you give me a hand? I could also say, could you give me a hand? And we can think of this as polite. May, possibility, and maybe even probability. Might. Might, let's put the same thing. Shall, let's think of this as very polite. Should, obligation, but we're going to call it soft obligation. I'll call it soft. Will, future modal. This can also be used as polite. Will you give me a hand? So we can think of it as polite request. Would. Remember, would you give me a hand? Also polite request. So we can think, I would. When I was a kid, I would. So past habit. Also polite request. Modals, as you notice, a lot of them are for politeness. Must, of course, is strong. Obligation. Ought to. More of a soft obligation again. Obligation, of course, is when you feel like something is your responsibility. So let's add that. Obligation. The feeling of responsibility, obligation. So modals can be used for politeness. They can be used for advice. Should, I should also, is a big advice one. They can be used for advice, for obligation, for request, for possibility, for probability, for ability. And I'll add more to that. That's just some of the functions they can do. They can do more, actually. Modals are pretty, what can we say? Modals are pretty useful in many situations. Not all situations, but many situations. Okay. They do not usually have past or gerund forms. So when we talk about would and could, sometimes we do use those to show the past, but with modals, they don't necessarily show the past. Other verbs are used instead. I hate having to get up early. Here we have have to, and have to can take on the gerund form, but not ought to. And of course, have to also means must, and you've probably heard that one before, so let's add that. I'm going to add have to along with must. However, have to does. It's a little different. It does have a gerund form. I was able to, am able to, as can, and that can be changed as well. So we have a couple alternatives. Be, any form of be able to, that can be used alternatively. So can, alternatively, we have be able to. Must, we have alternatively have to. But be able to and have to can have different forms, and that's the difference with those two. Usually, so was able to, I can show the past. Having to, I can use a gerund. But with the others, like with must and can, no past or gerund forms. So the 10 standard modals we started this lesson with, no past, no gerund forms. And of course, we have a couple others that we can use, like have to and be able to. Next, I need my coffee as always. You'll always see me drinking coffee. Some modals are used with the perfect infinitive, and this is something we'll have to talk about in the future, to make past forms. You shouldn't have done that. It's about the past, about a past action. She must have stayed home. A guess about the past. Using evidence in the present, make a guess about the past. But these are special uses, and we'll have to talk about those later. So this last rule we will address sometime later. And let's look at a couple more examples. Santos, these are your examples again. And of course, if you're watching this video later, then it's broadcast time, then it's standard broadcast time. You will hear me talking to some people sometime. These people are in the live chat. So if you join any of these classes live, You can join the chat. You ought to know how much I need you. Yeah, good. You should know how much I need you. I would say this is probably the better form. You should know how much I need you. But yeah, we use this one too. You ought to know how much I need you. Modals are often interchangeable and they can be used, boy, I would say almost idiomatically. You ought to know. But I think this one is probably more proper. You should know how much I need you. But both good examples. Both of these work. Okay, let's go to the modals of probability. And of course, this is why I brought up the word probability at the beginning. For probability, we're just going to focus on these 6. Must, can't, the negative form, should, may, might, and could. So we're going to narrow our focus down to about 6. Let's look. Probability, and maybe seeing some examples will help. Must is used when we want to say we are certain about something, but we do not have all the facts. So let's look at the class note. Must, certain without all the facts. We feel very, very strongly that we know. However, maybe we don't have the evidence to back it up. You must be joking if you think you can do that. The meat must be ready by now. Let's check. Let's look in the oven and see if it's done. You must be cold if you're wearing a coat in this weather. And we would say this if the weather was a little warmer, but the person was still wearing a coat. You must be cold if you're wearing a coat in this weather. So we feel very certain. Must, of course, is strong, a strong modal. You must be joking if you think I can do that. Again, remember with probability, it concerns facts. Probability concerns facts. And here, it's the feeling. And I should say that. I should make that clear. We feel certain, but we don't have all the facts. We haven't gathered all the information. We have some evidence that makes us feel like we're making the best guess possible. Okay, so Chavez, you wrote, like, if you have a flu, you must drink plenty of water. If you have the flu, you must drink plenty of water. Of course, that would be advice. That would be advice. If you have the flu, you must drink plenty of water. That, to me, sounds like advice more than the feeling that we are certain about something. We could say, since you're drinking so much water, you must have the flu. So let's look at the evidence first. If you see the evidence first, we see somebody drink a lot of water, and then we're able to use that modal that shows we feel certain, we feel it's pretty probable that this person has a flu. We see them drinking more water than we normally would. So if you are drinking so much water, you must have the flu. So I look at the evidence, I see this person drinking a lot of water, and then I come to a conclusion. You must have the flu. Yes, you must. Good. Okay, there we go. Boy, you're going to have to help me with your name. Nilofer Shariat. I hope I didn't mispronounce that too much. But this is a perfect example. You must be a coffee lover. You see me, when I do these videos, you see me drink a lot of water. There's your evidence, a lot of water, a lot of coffee. You see me drink a lot of coffee. There's your evidence. So you can come to the conclusion, you must be a coffee lover. I am indeed a coffee lover. You've seen the evidence. You've seen me drink coffee. I drink coffee every morning. So you have visual evidence. And that's what we talk about when we use modals to mean probability. So of course we're looking at when we want to mean probability. So we look at the evidence. Maybe I'll put that in. Look at the evidence and make a conclusion. And you can use must that way. We must, okay, so al-Walid, we must stop the war in the Middle East if we can. So that one again is strong. It's obligation. It's actually, it would be a modal of obligation. Like it's our responsibility. Maybe it's the world's responsibility. We must stop the war in the Middle East if we can. So I would say that one is about obligation. That would be modals used for obligation. And remember, the reason we're looking at these modals of probability right now is to show that these modals can take on many, many different meanings. And that's the difficult part about modals. They make grammar easier, but they make meaning a little more difficult. So meaning is very, very difficult. Chavez, this is correct. This is a correct use of must to mean probability. If he doesn't answer, he must be out of his office. Well, that one's a little bigger. What am I using? 14? That's better. Okay, there we go. Size 14. That's the size of my font. If he doesn't answer, he must be out of his office. So evidence, nobody's answering the phone. Conclusion, he must be out of his office. Okay, let's look at the next one. Can't. When do we use can't? Of course, the negative is can't or mustn't. So we looked at must. We have can't or mustn't. Mustn't isn't so common in American English. It exists. This word exists. We don't use it that much. It's not common to use mustn't. It's very rare to use mustn't. So we usually use can't. So let's look at this. So the negative of what I just talked about, and I'll blow these up. Let me clean this up a little bit. So let's look at these examples. Starting with the first one, hopefully you can see that. I'll make it a little bigger. You can't be cold. It's almost 30 degrees outside. So again, here's some evidence I have. And then I make a negative conclusion. So let's say, oh, I don't want that bold. Use the evidence to make a negative conclusion. So it's just the opposite of what we talked about with must up here. You can't be cold. It's almost 30 degrees outside. He can't be here already. He left only 20 minutes ago. That can't be true. So this one, let's say you see a car pull up in front of your house and you're expecting your friend, but it can't be him. He can't be here already. He left only 20 minutes ago. It takes 40 minutes to get to your house. What is he doing? Could that be him? Did he speed? You feel very certain it's not him. That can't be true. If you say that, you feel very certain. You feel very probable that it's not true. Like that, yes, it can't be possible. It can't be possible. That's not possible. Maybe if you see an incredible video, like the magician pulled an elephant out of his hat. It can't have fit. Okay, I don't know how the magician did this trick. The magician pulled an elephant out of his hat. It can't have been in there the whole time. So I don't know how the magician did his trick, but I know the elephant can't have been in the hat the whole time. For one thing, elephants just don't fit in hats. So I feel I have some evidence. I don't know how the magician did his trick, but I know the elephant was not in the hat the whole time. This is good use as well. You can't be serious. You can't be serious. If somebody's joking around or they tell a very tall tale. You saw, oh, I don't know, maybe you saw Michael Jordan? You can't be serious. Of course, Michael Jordan, a very famous basketball player. Mr. Singh, yours, you can't be late for tomorrow's class. Again, I would say obligation, responsibility. You can't. There's no way. Impossible. You can't be late for tomorrow's test. Not a guess. We are not using evidence, so it's not probability. It's something stronger. I can't bear having so much responsibility. I can't bear to be alone. So can't bear is a little different. Can't bear is, those two words are used together, meaning you cannot tolerate something. You cannot stand something. So those two words need to be together in use. This use of the can't that we're using can be used with any verb. It can be used with any, and notice we're using it with be a lot. So it's used a lot with be in this case, but it means you've seen the evidence. How about this? You see your friend, and you see your friend smoking a cigarette. You are coughing a lot. You can't be a smoker. Meaning, if somebody who normally smokes a cigarette, they don't cough, right? They just smoke the cigarette. But if you see somebody smoking a cigarette and coughing a lot, you can make a guess based on that evidence. The coughing is the evidence. You can make a guess. They can't be a smoker. You can't be a smoker. You're coughing too much. Okay, let's look at should. Expectation. So should is going to be used for expectation, but a wanted expectation, a good expectation, something we would like to see happen in the future. Let's put these examples in here. So this meaning of should is going to be expectation. The weather should be pretty nice tomorrow. That's what I want. That's what I want the weather to be. My team should win the game tonight. If they're a stronger team, they have better players, the other team is injured, my team should win the game tonight. That's my wanted expectation. It shouldn't snow too much in the winter. Maybe based on weather forecast, weather patterns, maybe if you're in a warmer climate. And finally, she should be coming soon. If you expect somebody to arrive at your door. So remember, wanted expectation. So remember, this is not obligation. A lot of your example sentences I've seen so far show advice or obligation. You should study education. Advice, you're giving somebody advice. I should learn English harder, or I should learn English more. Maybe not expectation, maybe a feeling of responsibility, of obligation. Rosa, welcome. You are a little late. Of course, I will share the notes at the end. Again, we're talking about modals of probability. Okay, so let's talk about wanted expectation. I ordered a pizza a half hour ago. It should be here soon. I ordered a pizza a half hour ago. It should be here soon. So, wanted expectation. I want my pizza. I feel it should be here soon. How about this? No, that'd be more advice. Thinking, what's a wanted expectation? What do you think is a wanted expectation? How about this? I should get a lot of presents for my birthday. I should get a lot of presents for my birthday. A wanted expectation. If you have a birthday coming up and it's coming up soon, it's what you want. Think about the things you want. I should take my medicine. Again, this is Shaw. This is maybe a feeling of personal responsibility. I should take my medicine. I should take my medicine. Maybe I should get it if I work hard. Yeah, good. Chavez, I think you got it. I should get a lot of money if I work hard. Good. A wanted expectation. Think about the things in the future that you want. Not that you feel obligation or responsibility that you have to do, but things you want, the things you want. Good, Con. This is correct. It's another good example. Winter is coming. It should snow outside. Yeah, if it's winter, winter is very close. Yeah, it should snow outside soon, right? It should be coming. Maybe if you like snow, that's a wanted expectation. Okay, let's look at the next one. Let's look at May. Oh. Let's just talk about this real quick before we get to May. Notice you can't use it for negative things. You should get hurt if you continue doing that. That's not a wanted thing, right? Nobody wants to get hurt, so we would not use it in this sense. Don't use it for things that are unwanted. I think you'll get hurt if you continue doing that. Yes. Notice I think, not you should. The people should die if they don't get help soon. No, we can't use it in negative situations. The people will die if they don't get help soon. Yes, we used a better modal there. Will. So we can use will if we think there's going to be a negative expectation, if we expect the negative. Okay, let's look at May. May expresses that the present or future is possible. So let's look at these examples. She may be sick if she needs to talk to a doctor. We may come tonight if we have time. So present or future. And what word was it? Possibility. We're going to, let's use that. Let's keep using our word probability. A little stronger than possibility. She may be sick if she needs to talk to a doctor. So again, evidence-based. We may come tonight if we have time. We may come tonight if we have time. I don't know. If we have time, yes. So kind of a conditional. I feel dizzy. Dizzy is where you're a little off balance. Actually, let me add it to the vocabulary. I don't know if you've come across that word. Dizzy. Feeling of being off balance. Like you might fall. Hard to stand or walk. If you spin in a circle, spin around in a circle for a long time, you often feel this. You often feel dizzy, dizzy. And yes, that's a good question, Rosa. May is often used with the conditional. May is often used with the conditional. We may come tonight if we have time. Yes, you can use may in conditionals. I feel dizzy. I may be getting sick. So sometimes when you feel dizzy, it's a symptom. It's a sign that you're getting sick. But it's a probability. I would say stronger than a possibility because this is definitely a symptom. If you say this, I feel dizzy, then you are feeling it. You are feeling it. You have an actual symptom. It might be a different kind of sickness, might be something in the environment, but you can say, I may be getting sick. So again, based on evidence, a lot of these, the probability is we can make a good guess because we have some evidence. And of course, Saad, if you say, I want to sign that paper, may I borrow your pen? Very polite way of asking. May is generally used for very polite requests. So remember, the focus here today on our lesson, probability, something that could happen. Let's look at might. Might is a little less certain, a little more unsure than may. So might, and I use this word soft, meaning it's not so strong. Soft may. It's a little softer use of may when we're maybe not so sure. We are not certain. I guess they might come. I don't know. I doubt it though. She might be upstairs. I'll check. So really, if you don't know, you have very little evidence. You don't have a lot of evidence. Now we're just making guesses. So now we're crossing over from that probability to the possibility. So it's not so strong anymore. We don't feel so strong about things anymore. You may be tired if you worked hard. Yeah. I would say, whoop. Is that okay? Oh, that's okay. Oh, wait a minute. Nope, that's not okay. Let me try that again. Let me try that font change one more time. Okay, this one, maybe not worked. Maybe not the past form. How about that form? You may be tired if you work hard. Let's just keep this present simple. Like here, present simple, have, work. You may be tired if you work hard. And might change that as well. Let's keep it in the present or the future. When we use this may, even in the conditional, let's keep it in the present or the future instead of the past. Yeah, I would say a lot of these, when we talk about probability, I think evidence is important. I think this use of the modals, again, probability, I'm going to say that word over and over again, and I already have this lesson. Evidence is important. Being able to see something to make these guesses where we feel certain, we do need a little bit of evidence. Now, should is a little different because should is expectation, but even here we have some evidence. The weather should be pretty nice tomorrow. It's my wanted expectation, but maybe it was also nice today. My team should win the game tonight. Maybe I've seen them before. I know they're the stronger team. It shouldn't snow too much in the winter. Maybe where I live, maybe the winters don't get a lot of snow. So even with this wanted expectation, evidence is very, very important. Even may. So this one, here we don't have so much evidence. If we don't have a lot of evidence, let's use might. Let's use might. And the answer, Maumorocha, you may get tired. You may get tired. Okay, let's look at, how about this one? He might come to the party. He said he would last week. So I have his words, but that was 1 week ago, and things can change in the last week. Maybe I have not heard from him in a week, so I feel he might come to the party. I'm not sure. And here we're, like when we use might, I would even say we're crossing over into new territory. I would say we're crossing over into possibility. It's not so strong anymore. It's not so strong. Yeah, so it looks like you, oh, good. Looks like you figured might out. Your cell phone might be in your purse. It might be my husband who's at the door. I might be able to learn English if I study. So your uses of might are good. He might be John. And usually John, J-O-N-H. He might be John. I remember meeting him before. So it sounds like you might have used might before. Your uses of might are good. I think this is a modal you sound very familiar with in your writing. Good. Is might more formal than may? Actually, I would say the opposite. May is more formal than might. When we use a soft modal, though, like might, some people consider that very polite. We're not being so strong. We're not trying to be pushy. We're not trying to push anything on somebody. And that's something we can talk about a little later. We're almost out of time. We didn't even get to an exercise. On Wednesday, I will continue to talk about modals, but really quick, let's look at could. And before we talk about could, or actually we don't have time, so let's just jump to could. She, and I'll replace those sentences with these, maybe the proper ones. She could be here. I haven't seen her though. The store could be really expensive. I'm really not sure. So here we're using it like here when we use it for probability, synonym for may or might. You could use could instead. She could be here. I haven't seen her though. The store could be really expensive. I'm really not sure. Sounds soft, doesn't it? So let's just say synonym for might. We're again in the realm of possibility. Very little evidence. She could be here. I don't know. I haven't seen her though. The store could be really expensive. I'm really not sure. Okay. Wow, we're out of time. That went fast. So more about modals on Wednesday morning. Use these class notes. Go ahead and look them over again. Remember today we talked about modals of probability, and we even got to possibility at the end with could and might. When we get a little softer, when we're making guesses, when we don't have a lot of evidence. So again, look at these notes. We'll talk more about modals on Wednesday. I'm glad you could all join me, whether it was from the beginning or in the middle. It was good seeing you all again. In fact, I'll go back to my green screen. We will have an exercise next time, so get ready to work next time. And yes, I shared the link again. Good, good. And maybe one more example from a sentence, just to give you another example. It could be windy outside. I don't know. I haven't been outside lately. It could be windy outside. Everybody's coming in and their hair's messed up. I have a little bit of evidence, but I haven't been outside. It could be. Thank you all for joining me. Hopefully this helps with one meaning of modals when we talk about probability and possibility. We'll practice modals more on Wednesday, and we'll have an exercise. Until then, I hope you have a wonderful couple of days. I hope you have a good rest of your day, whether it's in the morning, afternoon, or evening. Take care of yourselves, be well, and I will see you again soon. Okay, time for the music. Bye-bye, bye-bye, everybody. Thank you, I'll see you soon.